Welcome to Beyond the Wild podcast, where we go venturing beyond the gear, beyond the subject, beyond the shot. Find the heart of wildlife and adventure creative. Beyond the Wild podcast is brought to you by pictureline.com, your online source for everything photography, and Canon USA. Listen in, we share tips and tactics learned from years of journeying into the wild. Your hosts are Jason Loftus, Ron Hayes, and myself, Mark Raycroft. Let's begin another episode of Beyond the Wild.
Welcome to another episode of Beyond the Wild podcast. And tonight we've got a special guest. We got a treat for you as far as our content. But we got a special guest coming to us from Montana, Cole Waltner. Welcome to the show, Cole.
Hey, thanks for having me.
This has been a long time coming, actually.
Yeah, it has.
Like 3 years coming?
Yeah, maybe. Because I think we met on social media and then eventually met on a shoot up in northeastern Montana with Craig Miller.
Yep.
Yeah. Shooting elk. So yeah, about 3 years now. Yeah.
Cool. Well, I'm glad you're on. And the content that I'm talking about, we'll get into it in a minute, but Cole was able to join us on a trip, and I mean we've been on a few shoots together now, but this one was something special. But
yeah, it was.
Hey,
Unique.
Speaking of content, so first of all, this is the first one we've recorded where we've had our new sponsor. So I'm going to give Canon USA an additional shout out tonight. They've been put into the intro now for a couple of weeks, but Canon came on along with Pictureline and pictureline.com and is now a sponsor of the podcast. Mark, for those of you who commented when I put out the new intro, Mark is still with Nikon.
What?
They did not force him to get a good camera and change back. Yeah.
Well, if Nikon keeps with that, if Nikon keeps with that bird tracking part of their new software update, I don't know.
You know,
Canon needs to.
Cole.
We did. I heard you talking on episode 4, as a matter of fact.
No, that's true. That's true. Yeah, and they, having the other big news. Okay, we just announced Canon as our sponsor, but I'm going to give another tidbit of Nikon news. They purchased Red Cinema and have already using some of that technology in a camera that just got announced. So that's going to be a game changer for them. And yes, I do hope I'm in anticipation of, by the time this comes out, probably Canon having announced the R1 and the R5 Mark II, probably sometime in May. I think it sounds like. I'm tired of guessing, and I'm tired of listening to the people who guess because it never comes about. But I think those two things are coming very soon. And if you saw our April Fool's post, you know that the 85 megapixel sensor in the new Canon R1, it pretty much focus stacks for you.
Excited to hear these stats, though. Seriously.
Yeah.
I mean, a long time coming. It's got to be, a solid fastball here coming toward.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. So I'm excited for what the next month or two is going to produce. Right. We are this weekend, after we record this, Jason and I are going to be at Pictureline. And then again, next month we'll be in Pictureline, probably about the time this comes out. Hopefully we can get Mark down. We'll see. But for their spring expo, so we'll be there live at that time as well. And there's a lot of good events planned. We'll have more on that coming up soon on social media and probably a YouTube short put together for that event. But thank you to Pictureline again for lining us up and doing the legwork to bring Canon USA along. Mark, I'm going to let you take it from here, because I'm just going to be a guest on this one.
Just like that. Well, it's fantastic. Canon gear, I used it for a year and had zero complaints about it. And so many friends, colleagues in the field that shoot Canon. It's fantastic equipment, as are many brands. So, but we're grateful, as Ron said, for the sponsorship and look forward to that partnership as well going forward, as with Pictureline. Today's podcast is something that we've had in the works for a while. It's a really exciting show about one of the best destinations in North America for wildlife photography. What, Ron? Yes, sir.
We might have to start that over. Sorry,
what?
Jason.
No, it's all good.
One more thing. Okay. So along with the sponsor announcement, also the other thing that we've got coming is a Patreon subscription. And along with your subscription, we're going to have a couple different levels, but at the higher level, if you subscribe, pay for the full year, you will get.
Don't do it. Oh, look at that.
A Beyond the Wild t-shirt.
Got to watch on YouTube, folks. See what Ron just did to the camera.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for Mark to do the play-by-play of what Ron just did.
Don't tell your parents.
Shoulders back. What's he wearing?
One more
He
time.
slowly lit the candle as he pulled his shoulders back and raised his butt off the chair.
Yes. I've been doing a lot of bench press lately.
So we've got some really sweet t-shirts while supplies last. I'm going to throw that out there. We've got several different sizes. So we have limited shirts in each size. But while supplies last, each subscriber will receive a Beyond the Wild t-shirt. And we will have some Pictureline swag as well for the first few subscribers. So
is that a monthly?
That'll be monthly and offered annually. Yeah.
Yeah. 2 options.
Yep. And you'll receive some extra content as well that's only available to subscribers.
Right. So there'll be content behind that price that's worth subscribing to. And not only is it worth that for the price point that we'll be putting out, it really will be. But it also helps with production. And, we're excited to say as well with this podcast that we have a producer, and he's working really diligently on all aspects of this, from our fantastic website to the editing to YouTube to everything going on behind the scenes. He's kind of helping us keep it all stitched together, and he will be developing the Patreon connection as well. So this, I'm loving being on this new show and where it's been going so far. It's very quickly evolving and very exciting. And yeah. Yep. And Jason Griffith's his name. You'll see his credits on anything you read going forward, as far as the YouTube summary or on the show notes on the website where additional images are. And that's one of his talents as well, is on the YouTube component. There'll be images and video as we talk about trips and such, so that you can see and enjoy along with the conversation.
Yep.
Okay. Can I get back to the show today?
Yep. Go ahead.
Sorry. Good though. Yeah. It
was a good segue.
It was, time. It wasn't, important to get that stuff out. So this destination today, it's been, because it's happened before we started the show, was one of the first things we talked about featuring an episode on. It's one of the highlight destinations that so many wildlife photographers in North America end up going to because of the mammals that live there. The interesting thing about what Ron and Jason and Cole and others did was when they went. It's not what one would expect. It's not the typical timing. And it turned out to be a home run in so many ways. So I'm really looking forward to hearing about this trip for personal interests, but also just for how it unfolded. I've seen the images, I've seen some of the videos, and the variety of which sounded like the crew that went had a fantastic time. And today we're going to hear about it. So you gentlemen went on a trip to... Ta-da!
Go ahead, Jason.
We went to Churchill, Manitoba. And, of course, the target species for that trip was polar bears.
Polar bear capital of the world, quote,
right.
unquote.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And what we learned is that there's actually quite a bit of other opportunities there as well, which I think we kind of knew that, but I don't think I realized what those other opportunities might have been. And I'm sure we'll get into that in the meat of the podcast here, but had some other really cool opportunities and experiences on that trip. So.
And your trip was different than what it's. And when you say Churchill, Manitoba, people visualize immediately a stunning polar bear on snow on the coast of Hudson's Bay. But that's not what you guys did.
No, we went specifically, went in September because Drew Hamilton and Discover Churchill. Drew told us that, February, March are the two best times for aurora, but September is number 3 as far as months for capturing aurora. And then it also, the other reason that we went up there is because the color on the tundra was just amazing, and we hit it. I don't think we could have hit it any better. You guys?
Agreed.
I thought it was amazing. Yeah.
Your pictures show it. Yeah, it's so cool. I mean, you see polar bears in snow, which is obviously a really wonderful experience. I see them for those that spend the money to do it in fireweed, which is kind of surreal to see, but you don't see autumn foliage and the timing. Yeah, it's seriously beautiful images.
I would love a polar bear in fireweed. We saw some images while we were up there, actually in the airport. There's several. And I think there's a couple locations that people go to, but the stuff that we got in the tundra with that color, the autumn colors, it was surreal almost by the time we got back, and I was editing on the plane, and I just couldn't wait, busted out the laptop and got after it while I was flying back.
Yeah, so unique.
Yeah, absolutely.
How did this trip come to fruition? How did it start? What got it going so that you just decided to go in September? Was it the Aurora Borealis comment, or combined with fall color? Or?
It was the combination for me. I think I had been talking to Drew. He had a group that canceled, and so we were able to get a pretty decent rate. It kind of worked out the same way as the Svalbard trip, as far as I reached out to a couple people, and we were full. Stan Tequila went with us. Stan was on Wild and Exposed with us, and then Stan is who I do my loon tour with, which Cole was also on in 22. So Stan came with us. Cole, who I've shot with as well, and we kind of have common. Well, it's not a background for Cole. He's still doing it. Law enforcement officer up in Montana. So we've got that in common. So, we get along that way, and I checked in with Cole, and he was all in. And then of course, Jason, and then Kelly came with us as well. Kelly was on Wild and Exposed also, but Kelly and I have shot elk together several times. And then we went, Jason and Kelly and Hunter, Jason's son, went down to Southwest Colorado and photographed the collared lizards together. And so, Kelly's another one that you just enjoy spending time with in the field. And Stan and Kelly, unfortunately, weren't able to be on tonight, but that was the crew. And it was kind of tight quarters, so it was good to have a group of people that were kind of like-minded and just easy to be around.
Which house did you stay in?
Bear number 2.
Yeah.
I have a trip planned for Bear's Den number 2 coming up.
Yeah.
Oh. It's a good house.
It's a good house.
Okay.
It is.
All right.
However,
yeah. Okay. Sure. Educate.
so there's bears in town. They have the helicopter kind of hazes them, get them out of there, but at night they just haze them with the patrol. They have a bear patrol in Churchill, and just to keep them out of town. And we got a video. I don't remember. I'm getting ahead of myself, I think, because it was like day 2 or 3.
2. I think it was 2. The day 3. So it was the evening of the second evening. Yeah.
A video of a bear walking down our alley. And so town's not very big. So if a bear gets in town, chances are you're going to be in close proximity. And we didn't know it. We were asleep or out shooting aurora. I don't know which, when the bear came through. But yeah, it was actually a pretty reasonably priced trip. And so we all just kind of jumped on it.
Cool. Yeah, we've talked before, right, about how big of a year it was for us. And that was like, another one of those bucket list trips for me. And when Ron called, it's like, yeah, heck, why not? Let's break the bank and
might as well
just do it all, man. Let's do it. The opportunity's there. Sometimes when that opportunity's there, right, you just got to kind of jump on it if you can. I understand that there's opportunities I've had to say no to, obviously, too. But yeah.
I think I was at work and I had just started my night shift, and Ron texted me. Didn't even call. He just texted, "You want to go shoot polar bears?" And I think I said, "Ha ha ha, funny." And he's like, "No, I'm serious." And I think I had the trip. I said yes within 20 minutes?
Yeah, it was
when
pretty
she told me what was going on. Yeah.
I think the next text I got was I checked with my wife and she said, "You have to go."
Pretty much. Yeah, she said you'd be stupid not to. So
yeah. She made the trip too.
She did. Because instead of flying from Montana, instead of flying from Montana, because we've got to go to a major hub to get out of here, we drove to Winnipeg, 13 hours to Winnipeg. She'd never been there. She's like, "Let's go." So we hopped in the car and drove up to Winnipeg and met you guys at we met Stan at the hotel, and then you guys came in later that night.
Mm-hmm. Much later that night.
Yeah.
Yeah, you fly to Winnipeg, and then from there, if you go on this trip, from there, everything's, your travel is covered. Going to Churchill because, sorry, the flights are so limited from Winnipeg to Churchill that Discover Churchill, the company that Drew and Alex have, they actually purchase tickets on the flight to get you the rest of the way. You can take the train, but there was a time when the train wasn't running here recently because there was some damage to the tracks. So the airplanes were the only way to get up there.
And I think the train takes 40 hours, isn't it? Like 40 hours from Winnipeg to Churchill on the train. It's a long day and a half.
But I'm not sure.
Yeah, there's what's on the tip of my tongue. I've known other people that take it from a further north. What's the name of this town? It'll come to me. Stand by after. But I want to just segue quickly and say, Cole, I've known you on Instagram for many years, and we've never met in the field. Mm-hmm. And I said this at the beginning, and my mouth was moving at the beginning of the podcast, but the Wi-Fi had frozen. So I just want to also say, welcome to the show, and it's great to at least meet you on the screen. Someday I hope to meet you in the field.
Me too.
A quick shout out too for your Instagram page so that people can see your work there. While I search.
Oh, you want me to give my own Instagram? Yeah, Chasing the Wild Outdoors.
Right on.
Yeah.
This is bugging me. I should know this. It's on the tip of my tongue. But anyway, the part of the reason the train is slow, it's on muskeg, right? So they can't go with speed because the track undulates. And you can't have that start rocking and rolling, or that can cause problems. So they've got to take it at a slow speed. Thompson. Woo! Thompson, Manitoba. Just clicked in the brain. All right. That's so you can take it from there. And I still think it's a long time, though. I think it's like 17 hours or something. But flying, so with Drew and Alex, that's the same thing we have set up for this year, not a fall shoot. I'm coveting the pictures and experiences you guys had. And it wasn't just, we'll get into this as the show goes on, not just polar bears. That was awesome for the timing you did. There are other species as well. But we go to Winnipeg and then the flight from there as they have pre-booked. So it sounds similar that way, but not similar for seasonality. So I just love the colors in your images. So the trip came together quickly, just like Svalbard. And was it everybody's first experience in Churchill?
Yes. No, Stan had been there before, but he had been in November, and he did the big tundra buggies.
Okay.
And
right.
he had a good experience. I've heard it both ways, but sure. Stan had a good experience on the tundra buggies and got some good images. But for me, just the opportunity to be on the ground and get them in a different background, I guess, different scenery. Yeah. I think was the partial draw.
Professionally, of course, fantastic.
Yeah.
How many pictures are there of polar bears in snow out there in the market? How many do you see brilliant fall colors climbing over boulders?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. It was just the opportunity for something different.
Yep.
And I think that's what draws me to the fireweed images as well, is just not that many out there. And every one that is stunning. And we had some opportunities to capture some of those, I think the first
fall colors even rarer, I think, so far.
Yeah. Well,
they see out there.
No complaints from me. I can tell you that.
Yeah. Right. So watch YouTube or check out the show notes. You'll see the images that the guys are talking about that way. It's worth checking them out.
For sure.
So what was the trip like? I know, just on the practical side, Jason, you were educating me a bit because planning the trip that I'm going on, because of the smaller charter plane from Winnipeg to Churchill doesn't allow for the same size of carry-on that we're used to on the bigger jets. Mm-hmm. So you had bought a smaller Pelican hard case. Can you just talk me through the process and as far as your gear choice and how that worked for the smaller plane? And it's applicable for people listening too, to other trips that they may be going on smaller planes at what you guys did to make it successful.
Right. Yeah, Will, I think I may have already mentioned this to you, Mark, on the side, but one of the things that was interesting is we knew that going in, and so we did the Pelican case, and I also had my f-stop bag. And my f-stop bag had most of my, I brought both lenses. I brought my 600 anytime I can, right? I just never know what you're going to need, especially in a situation like that. So I brought my 600 and my 400, and I did it this time. I did it with the 400 the 600 in my f-stop bag, the 400 in the Pelican. Brought both bodies, brought, the normal kit that I would normally bring on an elk shoot, for example. Just not knowing what to expect. But the nerve-wracking part was when you get to that airport, you have to, you do have to, I think we ended up had to check our f-stop bags. Yes, I was just trying to think through, because I've had twice this last year I had to do that, and it was a little nerve-wracking because it's like, boy. But the nice thing is those folks that are there at that airport, they're used to that. They're used to those, they're used to that kind of equipment. And we actually literally watched them physically carry our bags out and, load it on the plane for us. So and it's not the same as a commercial airline where it goes behind a curtain and you have no idea what's going on. Right. So felt really good about that. There was zero issues. Yeah. There was zero issues with any damage or any concerns with the, the care of the cameras and that once we got, and it wasn't a big deal after that. But you know how that goes. You got a lot of money in that bag, and it's a little nerve wracking saying, sure, here, go stick this underneath the plane,
Yeah.
But
chuck that in there.
Yeah.
That was at the gate, not at when you checked in. You checked it at the gate, so they just took it right then to put on the plane?
So
I carried my f-stop bag on.
Yeah, I had to carry my Go ahead.
Go ahead, Cole.
Oh, yeah, because my big bag that had all the clothes and everything like that, and whatever camera gear I couldn't put in the Pelican, we had to put that on that conveyor belt at the airport. But our Pelicans, we were able to walk out, and they took them there right before we got on the plane. We got to watch them load it up, and then we hopped on. And then the same with getting off when we got to Churchill.
Right.
Cool. Well, that works. And that's what Drew said as well. I do really handle it with care. But gate checking it, it skips the step of it going through all the conveyors through the airport and handled who knows how, right?
Right. Just like Cole said, you literally get to watch them put it on the plane. And we mentioned it to them because we were nervous, and they looked at us and they're like, I got you. Matter of fact, the one guy could tell how nervous I was, I think. And he says, I'll physically take it right now. You can watch me go put it on the plane. I was like, oh, all right, cool. So
he stood 6 feet back and gave it a little throw as it went in.
Yeah, exactly. He whistled at me and like.
And I actually, from talking to Drew, I was pretty comfortable, and I actually wrapped them in. I had a bunch of puffy coats, for layering, and so I put everything, my big lenses, and put them in a Pelican and checked them. Completely, like
right at the front, at the beginning.
There were no issues at all.
Yeah. But you did
and
that
I think
from
too,
Wyoming or from Winnipeg?
No, from Winnipeg. Yeah.
From Winnipeg. Yeah. Okay, right.
Yep. I use
and I think too, when you fly, like when I went to Nepal, I could only take so much weight because I was going on a small plane to get to Lukla. So you kind of learn how to pack your stuff to make it as efficient and safe as possible. Because, even though you can watch them put it on the plane, you still don't know. So you kind of learn, and I've gone on enough trips now. You're pretty good about finding the biggest coat you're going to take and wrap it in. And I might even wrap my camera in my underwear and my socks, my t-shirt, my pants, then my coat, and put it in that bag that, if you can't put it in the Pelican. So you do what you can, to try to keep those ones that are in the Pelican.
I thought I could smell something.
I didn't have to on this trip. I didn't have to wrap them in this trip, but some other trips I've had to.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I took my video tripod too, and that took a lot of the weight on one bag. So I was literally, Stan fortunately had a scale. And so I was literally running the scale on both bags, and I'd take one thing out, move it to the other, put something else in my carry-on.
Just between when they measure the weight, you weigh one and switch it out and then weigh the other?
I'm not saying I did it, but I'm not saying I didn't, Mark. Take that one off, put the other one on, and then switch them quick. Get the same one weighed. But yeah, it was they were pretty strict on weight, but they did not weigh the carry-ons. So we were pretty fortunate. And there wasn't a lot of people on the plane, so I don't think they were too worried about that.
But it's a small overhead. That's the trick, right? That's
tiny. Yeah.
Stop. Is it Talopa you had, Jason?
Yeah.
Okay.
But like the overhead on the plane, I'm talking like slim briefcase type overhead.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, really? So like a laptop case, not much
more. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Small backpack, nothing crazy.
So we still don't. We still don't have a backpack sponsor yet. F-stop, but
working on that F-stop.
Interesting that they have these ICU units of varying sizes you can get inside the pack, and so I have yet to fly in a plane that's pulled mine out. But I also have the strategy when I walk up to the gate to get on the plane that I'm wearing the pack, and I'm trying to. You don't really see the pack that much, right? While you check in. Nobody weighs it, thankfully. But if it ever happened, my plan is to pull the ICU, the internal cubed compartment, which holds the camera gear out, which then reduces it significantly. And if necessary, check the flappy pack that's left. It's good. Flappy, but just without the cameras in it. So would there have been room for an ICU, or no? It's not really practical in that case.
Not on that plane.
Okay.
But
it worked for you guys. No issues.
No.
Obviously, those airline companies were used to transporting this equipment that way and did it just fine. So that's cool. Yeah. So when you get there, what happens? What's day one like? What's going on? Tell us what the experience when you arrive in Churchill in, sorry, what week in September?
Second week.
Okay.
Second week in September. And we pretty much got to the house, offloaded our gear, and picked a room and went out to shoot. I mean, It was pretty quick turnaround. So we had everything ready. Everybody charged batteries and everything in Winnipeg that needed to be charged, and everybody was ready to shoot when we got there. And it didn't take long. I mean, drop them, throw on a jacket, and off we went.
How long were the days?
We were probably shooting our first bear. Sorry, Mark. We were probably shooting our first bear, I don't know, within an hour, or maybe a couple hours after we landed by the time we did all that, and then got out in the van and pretty much drove right to our first bears. So it was pretty exciting. Yeah.
And that first bear is where we saw Chad, who was supposed to be with us in Svalbard, and he was up. He got some crazy images of a sow polar bear nursing a cub. Just insane light and beautiful shots. If I can find them, we'll see if we can get permission to post it in the show notes. It was gorgeous, or else put it in the video. But yeah, they were already there with Discover Churchill in another van. I think they were with Alex, because I don't think Drew was out that first night, right?
Right.
And when we got out there,
Jimmy.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we got out there, met them, and photographed that first bear, and it was a good encounter. Mm-hmm. And then that one was on a beluga whale carcass, which got interesting later in the week. But we had a couple opportunities with that, or bears on that carcass, and in different sides and different light and different foliage, and real good opportunity. And the conservation unit had dumped it out there, of course, and then a bear's going to find it. In fact, I think the sow and cub, they said they photographed the sow a couple miles away, and all of a sudden she put her nose up and hit the water and swam all the way over to where this carcass was. And the cub just had to keep up. So
it was out. The sow and cub were out on the surf and the beach when we showed up, when we first got there, and then it wasn't much longer after that, and they were on that carcass.
Yeah,
and that's when you ran into Chad.
Sorry, go ahead, Cole.
No, you're good.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think if I remember right, the tide was raising, wasn't it? And they finally got washed off their little dry rocks that they were laying on, and then they swam to shore and went and headed over to the carcass. But yeah.
Yep.
So this wasn't a bear-killed beluga, because I've heard that's something that
they will. Yeah, for sure.
Right. Opportunistically while waiting.
I guess I don't know that it wasn't, but I know it was, the carcass was moved to that location, but.
Wow, what a old school Nat Geo opportunity.
Oh,
for behavior.
It was
for
nuts.
You guys, as far as style of content. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's how it started.
That was day one. I mean, that was just, we got there, we went to the grocery store and got some groceries, and then went out, and it was like, boom. But Jason's right. It was within a couple hours of getting there, even with the grocery store trip. Buying $17 Totino's frozen pizza.
Yeah. Our sandwiches were like $29 a sandwich when it was all said and done. Bologna and cheese for dinner.
No. 29. You're joking. That's a bit of an exaggeration. Tell me it is.
Not much.
No, not much. No, you should, if you're going to go there, you need to prepare for that, right? Because everything has to be flown in or on train.
Or on the train.
Yeah. Right. I'm not, I get the, it's just a shock, right?
Yeah, it is a little bit of
the added expense for sure, the remoteness. Right. But so what you're saying is put a few boxes of Cliff Bars in your checked baggage.
Wouldn't be a bad idea if you can take the weight.
Right. Yep. But hey, a second bag, it was worth the
second
cost.
Bag was 50 pounds on the dot too.
I guess there's that side of it, right? The smaller plane, you've got to put so much more.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
But yeah, that was day one. And then that evening they basically said, you're on call. So if we get aurora, we'll call and then we're coming to get you. And the first night we were out and it was, okay, so this is where Ron's going to piss and moan and whine a little bit. So I got a Canon R3 for this trip from Canon Professional Services because I wanted the smaller, lower resolution sensor for the nighttime shoots. And the R3's got phenomenal low light capabilities. So I wanted it, and I got it. And you would think they had or would have everything set to RAW and manual. This is the
RAW story.
This is the JPEG story.
JPEG story.
We have this freaking
first episode
believable
of our podcast.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we have this unbelievable night of aurora, and everybody's just kind of doing their own thing. They took us to this little cabin, and we were using trees in the foreground and blah, blah, blah. This crazy, light just falling out of the sky right down toward us. It was unbelievable. And I shot the whole night in JPEG because I made the assumption that they would have it set to factory settings, which puts you in large format RAW or full format RAW.
Wasn't it not until the next morning when we were back on the carcass that you realized you were in JPEG?
Yeah.
We were sitting down there, you were switching video or doing something with video, and you're like, oh shit.
There was
Guess what, guys?
I didn't say that. I would not curse in the field.
Yes, you did.
Yeah, I didn't know it until we got out, and I was gonna use it for video, and I went through the menus to switch the settings and realized that I shot that whole night in JPEG. And then we had good aurora, but we didn't have that good of aurora the rest of the trip.
That was by far the best night for sure, as far as
far and away. So,
but I thought you were going to complain about how many. Sorry, Mark.
No, it's all right. I'm just thinking that it took this many months. You can finally talk about it.
You can finally say it.
Beyond the Wild
Get that on my chest.
Therapy session 101.
Right. Ass chapping 101.
I would wager your language was more than what was said here now. But
it's possible that it was.
Yeah, it's a long time.
I'm the youngest one out of the four of us right now. I have a pretty good memory.
Already playing that card. Well, it was nice having you, Cole.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys.
Yeah, I thought you were going to complain about how many nights we had to get up and shoot aurora, but
okay. So that's getting ahead a little bit, but it got to the third or fourth night, and it rained, and I was like, thank God. I was hoping all day that the rainstorm would just set in and thick cloud cover and no possibility of going out for aurora, because Ron needs his sleep to function, and we did not get any. Because we were shooting aurora, and then we were up, for daylight for bears again to get golden hour with the bears. But crap, we had a 4-day shoot, really 4 full days, and we got 2 weeks worth of opportunity. It was unreal. But yeah, that's the JPEG story, Mark, in a nutshell.
That was JPEG large, right? At least that.
Yeah. It's
no.
I had to gigapixel them in Topaz to get them big enough to print, but I did. Have you
started your Instagram page on Northern Lights yet? You could use them for that.
Yeah. No, you can't. You can't even use them for that.
For Instagram, 72 DPI. You're laughing.
They sucked. Yeah. Yeah, you say that, but no.
So tune in next week, and we'll be following up on Ron's new Aurora Borealis social media page.
No, I posted the 2 that I got from that night.
I'm sorry. I shouldn't lie. I'm sorry to hear that.
Wow. No, it was my fault. I should have checked it.
Right? It's a live and learn experience. It happens. There's things.
Yeah, but I mean, that just shows you how important it is too, because, somebody like me, I can't afford, to go buy an R3 right now. And so, yeah, if I'm going on a trip like that, once in a lifetime trip, I'm going to rent something. And how many people just assume that, because most of us shoot raw, manual. I mean, that's where we're at. You just assume that. Well, assuming we know what that does, makes an ass out of Ron.
Certainly did make an ass out of me.
That's going to be my new saying with assume. I'm going to use it literally just like that, quoting you, Cole.
Okay. So always check your settings when you rent anything.
Yeah.
Or get it sent to you.
Yep. Okay, we've covered that. Let's move on. But yeah, the Aurora was unreal that night. There was a lot of movement. It just like, holy crap, look up, and
wow. So much fun.
Come over here. It was crazy. It was shooting across the full sky. And then at one point, literally took my camera, flipped it straight up in the air because it looked like a fingerprint, to be honest with you. This big fingerprint of light just started coming right down, right at us. And that's the big thing about Churchill is you're right in that oval, the Aurora oval. And so it's basically right on top of you. And it was as advertised. When we were on Wild and Exposed, Drew would talk about it, or he'd have a time lapse going while we were recording the podcast. And you always think he's exaggerating. And it was insane. I had never experienced anything like it.
I think polar bears know to hunt more on nights with northern lights because everybody's looking up at the sky.
I don't know. That thought went through my mind a lot, though, while we were out there.
It was pretty dark.
It was.
Yeah, it was.
The third or fourth night, we were shooting, and this fox came right through the middle of all of us, just kind of weaving between tripods and people and cameras. And
yeah, when I saw it, it had rubbed against my leg, and I looked down like, whose dog's running around?
Yeah. It was a red fox.
Yeah. But yeah, it was cool. I mean, we get to see him up here, in Montana fairly regularly. And I thought I've seen some pretty cool northern lights, but that first night up there, I mean, you could hear them. I mean, I swear you could hear them. It was that amazing. And I mean, there was half the time where I forgot I even had a camera. I was just standing there with my jaw hanging down, and you're just like, this is some of the most amazing thing I've ever seen. And it was just, like I said, you could hear it. I swear you could hear it. That's how cool it was.
It was
something I'll never forget for sure.
Awesome timing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So did you use like GoPros and smartphones too, or did you do everything on the mirrorless?
I did a couple time lapses with GoPros. I just mount it I mounted it to the top of the van a couple times, and then the first night I mounted it on the deck of the cabin that we're photographing near, and just let it run. And you could, because it kind of gave a view of what was going on as we were shooting as well, because, you'd be looking at your camera, use a headlamp or your phone flashlight or whatever, adjust something, and then start shooting. And so you could see all that activity going on. And that's kind of what I wanted to get. It was pretty neat. The GoPro, what they call it, night lapse on the GoPro 10 is what I was using. And it did a pretty good job. We'll show some on YouTube. I'll send some to Jason, and he can throw it on there.
Awesome. So you were happy with that content then?
Yeah, it wasn't stellar. That GoPro's got a tiny sensor on it, so you're going to have some noise, but it definitely showed what we were able to view, while we were there. And I captured the activity of the people, the ants running around with the headlamps and that kind of thing. It was pretty neat. Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
We were able to even get some shots of us under the Aurora. So I took a shot of those 4 guys, and this big band of auroras coming right over the top of them, and it was just crazy.
Yeah, if I remember right, Ron, it's like as far as like we can kind of like cover the auroras and then we can go to like day 2 or whatever. But
yeah,
the second night was, and it was still good, but it wasn't crazy. We went to a different location with some different structures and that, and we got a couple of okay shots that were not very bright. But then the third night it was just on fire again, and we were by a lake. That's when the fox came up and showed up, and we were just reflections and just it was unreal. It was an incredible night that night too. Mm-hmm. So I know Ron got some stuff that night that was good too, because it was definitely not in JPEG at that point. But,
it was full raw.
Full raw. Yeah.
Full raw. Yeah. And that was the night we were able to get the reflection in the. We were on the river. We were on a bay on the river, weren't we? Or was that a lake?
I think it was a river, and it was like it was on like you said, an extended bay that was part of the river.
Yeah. And so we were able to get that reflection of the northern lights bouncing off the bay, and had some really cool foreground rocks and stuff in there. That was a cool night too. That night was awesome.
Yep.
I do have time lapse from that night. That's the night before my GoPro decided to take a drink.
Oh, that's right.
Remember?
That's right. We'll talk about that too in a minute.
Yeah.
But and then just wrap up your sorry, Mark. The last night was the night it rained, and then we were like, everybody finally got some sleep that night. But yeah.
You gotta fit it in though, right? That's the pressure.
If it was gonna not rain, you're gonna go do it.
Oh yeah.
That's all there is to it. No, I lie. That's not true. It was the 4th night that it didn't rain. We went out. Remember?
It didn't rain, but it was kind of petered out.
It just didn't really pop for us, really right? And then the last night it rained. That's right. So we actually
because the 4th night. Yeah, the 4th night we went out on that 2-track into the trees to try to get some. Never really happened, but on the way back, it picked up a little bit, and we went over to one of the murals on the edge of town.
Right. Oh, that's right. That
did some light painting on the murals and got the lights behind that.
Yep.
That was kind of fun. Drew said, "Oh, it's popping," and he like, whoa, and we hauled to this part of town and got some pretty cool shots. But yeah, it was fun.
Yeah,
that's right. I forgot.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Cole. Yeah, I forgot too.
Polar bears make most people's day, right? And to be able to have a trip where you've got this at night too, obviously sleep deprivation becomes an issue after a while, but wow, it's such a different experience to be able to do the polar bears and then have your mind blown with amazing northern lights.
It was nonstop all day, all night. I mean, when we were out there, we came back in the midday a couple times, thankfully, because we got a nap. But
what was September? Usually the day length is moderate then, right? So is it like 7 to 7? Would that be, or is it still longer?
No, I think it was still longer because we didn't. When did we go out for Aurora? Like 9 or 10?
Yeah, it was like 9 or 10 when we went out, and we were usually out till I'd guess around 1-ish. Midnight or 1.
Yeah, it was 1 o'clock, 1:30. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So if you're up at 6 and at 1:30, it doesn't. After a few days, that catches up on a young man, young person, young anybody.
Yeah.
Totally. Well, and so how many days was this trip in all? Because I know there's a whole other segment that's coming up.
4 full days.
4 full days.
Uh-huh.
So you have polar bears, and roughly how many polar bears did you see and photograph in that time frame?
I think we saw 7.
Wow.
Yeah.
Right?
I think so.
Awesome.
Yeah, especially the ones, because we didn't really get to photograph all of them, but the ones that we did see more than we photographed for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Some that were just farther away in that, but yeah.
Right. Are they? I mean, obviously Churchill's known for the fact that the polar bears hang around the coast there through the summer and spring, summer, fall, waiting for ice up again so they can go out and hunt seals throughout the winter months. And there are more and more of them along the coast, and correct me if I'm wrong with any of this, as the ice gets closer to forming, right? Yeah. So the bears that were there that you saw in early September were likely there throughout the summer as well, just hanging out, waiting for...
Except for one. He took a journey.
Yeah.
Well, so going back to your question first before we talk about that dude, we learned a lot. It wasn't just the photography. There was a lot of historical information that we got about the area, and it was fun to learn about that. The Hudson Bay Fur Company actually built the fort that's across the river from Churchill proper now, and the fort is still there. It was a fortified fort, but those cannons never were shot. Um, they surrendered to the British Navy without a shot being fired, and had dinner and good time. Um, but the reason that the bears congregate there, it's the same reason, any freshwater river that dumps into the Hudson Bay. The reason that the bears are there is because the freshwater freezes at a higher freezing point than the saltwater. So it's the first areas to freeze up. So those bears can get out and hunt earlier than they can if they're just, waiting for the bay to
lower
freeze.
freezing point.
Yeah, lower.
Higher. It has to get colder for the saltwater to freeze. It freezes at a higher temperature for the freshwater.
So there are seals in the freshwater.
There's seals. There's actually seals in the river. Seals and beluga in the Churchill River, and so the seals start moving out as well as the river freezes. Further inland, the seals move out, and as the river then freezes into the Hudson Bay, those bears are hunting almost immediately, and so they stay in town and in and around town until that full freeze up, and then they're just gone.
Yeah, I got it mixed up. So it freezes, obviously. Yes, I was thinking, but just doing the math, it freezes before saltwater, the freshwater does work their way to the coast.
Yep.
We hear why Cole's GoPro took a drink.
All of our GoPros got submerged, but Cole's, go ahead.
Yeah, so there were still, normally the belugas are pretty much gone by second week of September, and they weren't. And so Drew, I think it was the second night, he's like, you guys want to take a Zodiac and go out with the belugas? And I don't think any of us even hesitated. We said, yeah. And so one morning,
extra expense is the reason that he had to ask, because we had to pay to rent the Zodiac.
But we took the Zodiac out with the belugas, which that was, I didn't even think of whales when we go, when Ron says, hey, let's go shoot polar bears. But then we get this opportunity to go out with the belugas, and they're such curious whales that they were, we'd find a pod and they were just as curious as we were, and they'd come up and come right next to the boat. And so we were able to submerge our GoPros and get footage of them coming up and checking things out. Well, I put mine in and was thinking I was filming away, and I pull it out of the water and it wasn't working. And for some reason the battery gate leaked, and I was able to recover the time lapse or night lapses from the Northern Lights, but nothing from the water. And so now I'm the proud owner of a brand new 12. But so it was a happy accident, but yeah. So I figured that was the worst thing that happened on that trip. That's nothing to be upset about. So
true enough. Yeah. You think about looking at the Northern Lights and it's pitch black out and polar bears are around. At least it's only going to eat one of you at a time, right? So you play the odds there. So that didn't happen, thank goodness. But I was imagining the camera going off the mountain, disappearing. But then I've seen belugas bring them back up. Who knows, right?
Right.
It's a good piece of advice. GoPros are meant to be submerged, but to check all the little tiny flaps on to make sure they're secure. Mm-hmm. You never know. Or even it could have been, and maybe just didn't seal either in that particular case, but it's worth double checking.
So
always
we use in a previous show, I talked about using the GoPro in freshwater. So we've used it a lot in freshwater to get salmon and, brook trout. And so I didn't ever really pay attention to, you can hear the water running by. But what I was really shocked by is they call beluga whales the canaries of the sea. They talk a lot. And what I was shocked by is the audio that we were able to get underwater, both the clicks and and the singing that they did while they were right there close, the full pod, right there close to us. So it was pretty unbelievable.
And we just have a pause. That'd be cool. And
that would be cool.
Jokingly as well that the audio was so good you could hear above the water as well as below the water.
Yeah, actually my favorite audio was Ron.
I don't think I know about this.
It often is for me too.
Right. Well, but here's the thing, right? And we all were like, but I honestly, okay, so here's the deal.
Okay, you two have been talking, first of all.
Hang on. This is a good story, and it's not a dig, I promise, buddy.
He doesn't always talk in his sleep, but sometimes.
Right. Sometimes I do. But we all know Ron's favorite thing is the aquatic life, right? We know that's a big part of why he does photography today, and that he really has a passion for aquatic sea life and that. And I mean, for him to have this opportunity, we were all excited. Don't get me wrong. It was a great experience for all of us. But there's no question that this was definitely like a highlight of the trip for Ron, for sure. And when he put the GoPro underwater and the belugas were coming up and mouthing it and doing all kinds of cool stuff, they were so friendly. And just hearing Ron giggle and just the excitement and the joy that he was experiencing with this experience was just like, I mean, that was what made it for me. It was like, oh, this is so cool. So
it was a blast. And I was like a little schoolgirl, I was having so much fun. And just looking over and watching them approach, because, as Cole talked about, you'd go by a pod and then Alex would slow the boat down. Alex DeVries was guiding us that day. Alex would slow the Zodiac down and kind of cut the motor, and they just come right up to us. And Chad, they had a good trip too on the Zodiac, and so he was showing us some pictures, and I was like, that's just insane. There's no possible way we could ever expect that to happen. And when we were going out, the whales that were on the river kind of kept their distance. But as we kind of got out into the bay, right off the point, as soon as we got into the bay, all of a sudden it was like different behavior. They were super curious and approached us much closer, and just watch it. It was like a Labrador retriever. They just really soft mouth. They'd come up and just real soft mouth. They'd bite the camera. And so I got tonsil shots of probably 4 or 5 different whales. But it was, I just kind of got lost in it for a few minutes, and then I'm like, oh wait, did any of you guys want to get down here? So
yeah, it was fun.
It was awesome though. And then, Cole's camera petered out, so we kind of shared footage when we got back, because we wanted to make sure everybody could show people what we were able to experience,
Yeah, that was nice of you too, Ron. We appreciate that. I didn't even have a GoPro with me on the trip, and we all got. Ron was really generous and let us all have an opportunity to stick the camera in the water and experience that with them coming up and mouthing and stuff. And
I had an extra one. I think you were running that one, right?
I was. There was 2 actually, I think it might have been Alex's. Actually, I think he let us borrow it. So I can't remember. I think it was Alex's, if I remember right. But yeah. Anyways, there was a couple cameras on the boat that we were able to, utilize in that. But just the experience was incredible. I mean, it was not even something we were expecting to do, and it ended up being a highlight for all of us for sure. Yeah. The other thing I was going to mention real quick too is one of the things that blew my mind is the nice thing about having guides like we've talked, is Alex knows the behavior so well, and he was really cool about explaining their behaviors. And when they'd come up to us and approach us, and he'd be like, oh, see, now they've accepted us. They think that they're accepting us into their pod. And it kind of was like, really, but then you watch the behavior and it's like literally they're swimming with us like we are one of them, and they're just super curious and very interesting animals. And the way they look, they actually turn their head, which is a unique behavior for them, and turn their head and look at you, and you make that eye contact, and it's incredible. It really is.
Mm-hmm. And there's only a couple whales that can articulate like that, and bend their necks. So
And I can't even do it right. I mean,
I wanted to say something. I mean, I think you did a great job, and if you do it again, just for you, I mean,
I should have practiced the noises, and I could have done an impersonation.
Yeah. We can put the audio over your head turn.
Well, you need to look the other way, and I'll look that way, and we'll do it like they were looking at us. Other way.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, good. This show is off the rails right now.
Yeah, it kind of is, but we're having fun.
Beyond. It's our objective. Go beyond.
Yeah. But that was a highlight for sure for me. I wasn't sure everybody else was going to want to do it. I was kind of surprised everybody.
Oh, I don't think any of us even hesitated, did we? We were all like, yep.
Nobody hesitated. Yeah,
no.
We're getting it.
Yeah. So. And we saw two bears while we were in the Zodiac. One over by the fort, and there was one on one of the jetties on the rocks. So we got to see two new bears on that too. So I mean, you know,
we kind of suspected too, right, Cole, that the one was probably looking for belugas. Actually, the one that was down by the rocks by the water.
Yeah.
Yeah. We didn't stick around or didn't have the time to stick around to see if that's actually what he was doing, but you know, we would suspect that that's what was happening.
The group that came the week after us actually got a bear in the water right there.
While they were that's right. They did. Yeah, swimming in the bay there.
Out on the Zodiac. Yep.
That's right. Yep.
Was there much discussion from Drew or Alex about predation of polar bears on belugas? Did that come up?
Yeah, we talked a lot about it. They said, you know, he and Drew both talked about the bigger boars will stand up on the rocks and they just wait. Smaller bears will wait for a young beluga to come by. And they're totally different color. They're born black and then they turn white as they mature. But they'd stand up on the rocks and just let them swim by. And, you know, when the tide was down or the tide was out.
And so they're close enough to the shore that they jump.
No, they're not jumping. They're just swimming by submerged, and the bears will jump off. The bears jump off on the whales.
They can see them from the shore. They're that close.
Yeah, I mean they'll swim right by the rocks. You know, it was interesting for us because even when we came back on the river after we had all these great close encounters out in the bay, as soon as we got back in the river, it's like these whales didn't want to get anywhere close to us.
Right.
And I kind of wonder if that's not why. If the behavior of those bears, they just kind of stayed a little bit more distant. We didn't talk about that, but you know, later on, as I was thinking about it, that I wondered if that maybe was part of the reason why they didn't get close to us when we got back in the freshwater and closer to the rocks.
Mm-hmm.
But at that time,
if they're pressured there by predators, right?
Yeah,
they're just going to be more cagey all around. Yeah.
Yep. And at that time, I think that one that was close to the fort was the biggest bear that we saw. And then, if I'm not mistaken, it was that afternoon when that all changed.
It was.
Because they were running. So the helicopter, the bear patrol, had a helicopter up, and then they had some trucks that were chasing a bear out of town. And
that was actually the bear that I think we saw the video of in town, I think.
Yeah, yeah, we think so. And then, so they gathered us up and said, hey, we got to go. And so we kind of went and started following the helicopter. And we came up over this hill, and I was in the front seat. And I'm like, crap, he's right there. And this bear was like just outside of town, just south of town, and right off the road. And that bear ended up giving us some of the best. I mean, for the next couple of days, that bear was a superstar. Totally read the script and did pretty much everything we asked him to, literally, because we asked him. We're like, we just need him to come up over that ridge and walk along the rocks and then come right down this cut that had all this fall foliage in it. Literally.
I've seen
verbatim exactly what this bear did. And that was kind of our last day, but we got some really good stuff of this bear coming through the willows and through the brush and the tundra, and then up through rocks. Like Cole's got a picture on his Instagram where he came right up between these two rocks and kind of looking right at us. He was a long ways out there. Cole was shooting at 800 at that time. But looking right at us, and it was just a beautiful scene. And then he kind of walked up and posed on this set of rocks, and he ended up walking down to the beach and taking a nap, and that's kind of where we left him that day.
Yeah. Yeah, because that was the time that Ron was we were trying to get the reflection shots in some of the tide pools.
Oh my gosh.
We were trying to angle that right.
After the nap.
That was after the nap. Yeah.
Drew.
Oh yeah, that's right. Because we did go back and eat a $26 sandwich and then went back out.
The club.
Yeah. Yep.
And Drew drugged me backwards. That's that.
So this is a question I wanted to ask you guys. Yeah. This is a question I wanted to ask you guys, and I've listened to every episode from Wild and Exposed, and I just finished episode 4 on the way back from town to come do this podcast. But is he always in the front seat or in the front everything of the Zodiac when you're in Svalbard? Was he always up in the front? Ron's always up front?
I was in the back in Svalbard.
Oh, no, I'm just curious.
It's a good question, but no, he wasn't. He was.
No.
I have a great picture.
I don't even think he ever offered the front seat to any of us on that trip.
I did. That's a lie.
No.
I said, does anybody else want to sit up here? Okay, good.
Yeah. That's what I thought.
Yeah. But it didn't matter. I mean, we had such awesome looks at everything that,
I was courteous, except for one time when I got out without permission.
Oh, yeah.
The rest of the time, the first thing I did was open the back door and get everybody out. So.
Yeah. All the guys that we were with, though, at Discover, they were, Discover Churchill, they were great. What I really enjoyed about it, honestly, and this made me feel a lot better, because this is the first time I've ever been like on the ground with a polar bear, right? And Drew talks a lot about this on the trips that we were on that trip that we were on with him. But, there's other bears where, they can get real close and it's not a big deal. And, they know the bears, they know the behaviors. They Drew might say you could trust the bear, so to speak. But polar bears, you just don't trust. He literally said that, like, will not ever trust a polar bear. And so knowing that your guide's got your back and they're thinking that way, and that there was a couple times where it's like, oh, get back in the van now, and never turned into anything, but it was clear that they were letting us shoot and they were focused on our safety. And because of that, we were able to have some really cool encounters and hang out with some bears at reasonable distances, and never felt like we were in any danger.
Definitely weren't focused on getting the shot we wanted. I can tell you that.
Well, and again, Ron kind of alluded to it. There was a point where we were trying to get some specific shots, and Ron got a little out there, a little bit too, and Drew had to like wrangle him back in. But
wrangling is a term used loosely. I stayed. He said, "Get back."
Yeah.
All I needed was 2 more steps, and this bear would have been just exactly on the other side of this still water pool. Would have been a perfect reflection. Instead, I got a blurry shot because when Drew grabbed the back of my collar and pulled me backwards, the camera went up. So I cut the butt off of this bear, and the front end is a great reflection. The back is not there.
Just a creative crop. That's all you need.
Yeah. You could do a vertical.
Right. Yeah, I tried to listen, because those guys also gave us, when they kind of realized that we were going to do what they asked us to do, they gave us a lot of leeway, and they weren't like that with other groups necessarily that we saw them out there with, but they gave us a little bit of free rein, and except for that one time, and in Drew's defense, it wasn't. had the conservation officer not just pulled up behind us, I think I would have that reflection shot. And I'm the one that shot my mouth off because I turned around once and I said, "Oh, conservation." And Drew's like, "Okay, boys, let's back up just a little bit." And he started doing the guide thing. And anyway, then I stayed, and I shouldn't have. I got corrected. Well, it was still fun.
All your great stories recorded, and the wonderful way you tell them. We're going to miss having more in the future, but thankfully we have so far.
Exactly. Yeah. No, that bear was not close.
No, it wasn't close. Honestly,
it wasn't moving toward us at all. He was walking parallel to the bank, but he was closer than the conservation officer probably would have let him be. And and up to that point, Drew gave us a lot of flexibility. So I'm not.
Well, and just so Drew's we're not like tattling on Drew here, right? And Drew knows what he's doing.
Sounds like you're giving props for.
Yeah. Well, we are, and that's my point. Is like what Ron said, 2 steps. Like literally, it was a kind of an issue where we were there, but we needed to be close to the van because of the proximity.
Yeah.
In the conservation officer's eyes, right? And Ron was just out away from the van a little further than Drew was comfortable with. Right. So it wasn't anything like, oh, yeah, and you get your butt back here. This is a situation or anything like that. Yeah. It really was just a situation where we just needed to listen and be where Drew needed us to be so we could avoid issues. But
yeah, it happens on every tour, I think. The things about distances that it just sometimes you have to say things to people, and it's not personal ever. It's for the person or the animal, and everybody gets excited. I mean, you think about this opportunity, the stories you guys have told today about this trip. You're in the moment. You can just be absorbed right into it, right? So. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a good guide who's courteous about it, and
they were awesome. I'll be straight up.
Highly recommend it.
Yeah, highly recommend it. Mm-hmm. Jason and I were with a guide in Yellowstone. We did a snow coach, and quite honestly, that guide didn't get tipped. We had paid for already another day on the snow coaches, and we told them if she was going to be our guide, we would not go out, and we didn't. We audibled. So we've been around both sides of that, and James, Alex, and Drew, all 3 were phenomenal. And they, the biggest thing is they put the animal first. Yep. They put us in a good position to let the animal do their thing and also get the shots that we wanted. Except that reflection shot. Drew, I'll forever hold that one against you.
But up here.
It's there. Yeah, it's just blurry because my head was snapping back.
It's your chance to be a painter now.
Right. Yeah.
Paint it.
No, it honestly, it was an amazing trip, and those guys did everything we asked them to do, and then some. So.
Yeah, I think they made it feel like, and for me, because this isn't my profession. This is my escape from reality and to reconnect with everything because of what I do for a living. And after the first 3 hours, it didn't even feel like what I would consider a wildlife tour. It was 6 guys, whoever was with us at the time, hanging out, enjoying nature. And I think that's what you want to ask for in a tour like that. And Drew and Alex and James, they exceeded any expectation that I might have had as probably the least professional out of everybody in the group, I guess is what I would say. And it was so good. I'll never forget this trip for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And just a little side note for Drew. I'm still not convinced there's ptarmigan up there, but
there's not. Nope. I don't think there are either.
They had not announced AI yet, but we see all these generated images that Drew posts on their website of these supposed ptarmigan. And
hey, and real quick, right, Ron and Cole, let's talk a little bit about one of my highlights of the trip that was a total surprise. The crazy, super sneaky hunter stalk that we did on that snow hare.
Oh, yeah.
The The Arctic hare, yeah.
Yeah, so they spotted that thing from a long ways away because on that tundra, it stuck out like a sore thumb. That white hair, he'd already changed colors, and we were with Drew that day, right? I think that morning
it was Drew. Yeah,
and so Drew kind of cut us loose, and we're like, "You think he'll let us get close?" And Drew's like, "Yeah, he doesn't think you can see you or see him because he'd already changed." So we would go 5 to 10 yards at a time, get a little bit closer. And I think Stan and I were the last two. You guys got bored with it. And Stan and I were the last two. I got this thing like full frame twitching his nose in the center of the frame, videoing. And he just stuck it out. And another one that kind of just read the script. He just chilled and let us do whatever we wanted to do, get the shots we wanted to get. And he was still
and no
there
kidding, like straight up ignored us too. Like we didn't even. He never what's the word I'm looking for? Never acknowledged our presence once.
Yeah,
which just blew my mind. I was just like, this sucker is completely ignoring us.
Straight crazy.
Yeah, that was fun. It was cool.
Yeah, and he even actually listened to us. We'd be like, hey, maybe go over there into that red stuff right there and show up in that red stuff. That was a fun one though. That Arctic hare was pretty cool.
Yeah, I wouldn't trade that one. And then later, Mark, later on, we're driving along this kind of little viaduct along the Churchill River, and we saw a mink. And so this is where I did kind of get a bad rap on this one because everybody got out. The mink kind of vanished. So 3 of the 5 of us got back in the van. 2, myself and Stan, stayed out there, and Stan's like, there it is right there. And so we went off and got some killer shots of this mink running through the rocks. And then we get back in the van. They're like, well, why didn't you tell us? We did. Stan said, there it is right there.
Yeah, you guys got back in the van.
We were out of the van. We couldn't hear that. Well, that's not our job. Sorry, fellas. James is the guide. He should have told you, but he didn't either. So
he watched them in the mirror getting the shots and was like, whatever.
Yeah. That was pretty cool. That was a nice surprise. Yeah. We were actually going out into kind of looking along this road in an area where they'd seen snowy owls and
foxes and
silver fox and and we ended up getting a mink, which was totally unexpected, along with the hare on one of these ptarmigan drives that we went on from time to time.
I did get a bird species, though, to add to the list on that. We did see the summer plumage long-tailed ducks. So that was the first one for me when we were looking for those minks. That's what Stan and I would do, is we would spend time looking for new waterfowl and birds while we were enjoying this polar bear trip. So I was hoping to find a snow bunting, or didn't see one, though.
We didn't need any snow buntings.
Yeah, I know.
All over Svalbard.
Yeah, we had our fill of those. And
whatever. Yeah, those are the ones that I haven't liked yet. I just scroll right by them. So
nice.
That's awesome.
Get a little angry and inside when I see them. No.
Yeah, but I can't remember. It was like day 3, I think. They got word that because they have polar bear jail there. So we talked about the polar bear patrol. They've got polar bear jail, and if a bear is hazed out of town more than once or twice, and they keep coming back, then they tranquilize them, put them in jail, keep them there for 30 days, and then they fly them out. So these airlifts that they do don't happen very often. But there was a gigantic boar. They said he was 970 pounds, I think.
Yeah.
Big boar. And they hauled this thing out on a forklift, and there were 4 guys walking right next to him. And one of the legs sticking up was as long as the guys. I mean, it was a huge animal. And they get this thing out, and they had a net spread out on the ground. So they drive out on the forklift, lower it on the net, and then they had 2 helicopters fly in, and fly this bear out. Well, there was a film crew that was kind of documenting the conservation efforts up in Churchill, and so these guys were flying with them. So we got to see some pretty cool footage of when they were flying out, but we also got to film the whole thing.
Yeah.
It was pretty impressive how efficient they were with, because I've done helicopter stuff with, rocket net gunning on bighorn sheep. Takes a little bit longer, and these guys were super efficient. I mean, in and out, everybody was in communication. They obviously, it's not frequent, but it's not infrequent either, because they were all on the same page. Everything happened pretty slick. But we got good footage of that, and the R3 was a good companion on that little shoot, not like it was on the Aurora. But we got, Jason and I had set phones up on a fence post or something, and then had GoPros out there and filming with our cameras, and then shooting stills as well of them flying this bear out. And I cannot express to you how big this animal was. It was
it was cool. It was cool to witness that and be just timing wise, be there at the right time to see it.
It kind of sucked because we left a really good bear out on the beach, and he was doing this napping behavior, flopping around, paw on his nose, and just kind of putting on a show. And we left that whole thing to go back and film this. And I was thinking, I'm not sure we're where we should be right now.
But do you guys remember the show Armageddon, about the meteor? So that's what I pictured when they were bringing that bear out of there on that pallet with the guys walking beside it. And so I set the R6. So was I using the R6 II and the R7? I can't remember which one I had videoing, but I was able to get it in super slow-mo. And I haven't put anything up yet because I wanted to wait till the podcast is, but I got it in super slow-mo. They're bringing this bear out, and it reminds me of that scene when all the astronauts are walking out to the spaceship. It turned out pretty good. I was super happy with it, but that's the first thing that went into my head when I saw it. So I was changing settings real fast to make sure and get it, and it turned out. So I'm excited to put it up here eventually now that we've at least recorded this. So
so that's cool. For our YouTube, if you don't mind, we could use that clip and then just watermark it. But that would be cool on the YouTube video to throw that on there along with all the images and the flight shots we got.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome.
Yeah, my phone worked really good, Ron, until I was reviewing it, and everything was great, and I got it, and then the helicopter took off, and as soon as that rotor wash hit my phone, man.
Yep. I was
like, oh well.
I have that clip too.
Do you?
Yep. Yeah, but got some really good stuff all the way through it, and it was neat to see. And then we got back out on that bear. Sorry, hiccup. We got back out on that bear.
You're the one having the pint of beer or something. The way you're hiccuping there, it's great.
No, really, it's Diet Pepsi.
It's all good, man. Seriously, what a trip. This is going to be a fantastic episode. And not to take anybody off of the audio platforms of Spotify or Apple Podcasts or Google Play or whatever it might be, but for YouTube, just listening to you guys talk about this trip, this one should be chock full of great visuals. And honestly, your polar bear stuff in fall colors, I watch for different content out there professionally, and this is awesome stuff that's so different than what's out there. So
I had a lot of people when I started showing the videos and the pictures and the stills that they're like, what zoo were you in?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
You had to be in a zoo in the lower 48. I've had a lot of people ask me that. I'm like, no zoo. Right. Yeah.
Yep. The rocks, the boulders, and it's just not a place and season you think the polar bear's in. But it's part of their world, right? I mean, they're there. So.
I got to give Ron a lot of credit, because when he first reached out to me, it didn't take me long to say yes, don't get me wrong. But when he said, yeah, I want to go. When are we going? He's like, September. I'm like, September? Right. I'm like, why are we going in September? I mean, good heck. First of all, that's elk season, remember?
It is elk season.
And secondly, it was like, what? And then he explained to me what his thought process was, and I was totally in. But so, yeah, Ron gets the credit for, thinking outside of the box and the kind of content we were trying to get, for sure. But,
yeah.
We did get elk season, because as soon as we got back the next day, I left for 3 days and went over with Craig Miller and those guys, and we got some elk footage too. So we still got elk season in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. It wasn't a loss, for sure. It worked out great, honestly. Yeah.
I would do it again. And we haven't got to the last day. The last day was unreal. I mean, we had the day that it was raining, the wind was blowing probably 30, 40 miles per hour. So what's that? 670 kilometers per hour? Something like that. Yeah. I'm not quick with the conversions, Mark, but
not quite.
Yeah. Anyway, so there was a sow and a cub that were kind of bedded down on the downwind side of this grass, this beach grass, just kind of as a windbreak. And we were with them for a long time. The wind was blowing so hard that we had to use the van I had to use the van because I was trying to video for a windbreak, and just tuck right in next to the van. And everybody you were going to get the same shot, except when she would check the wind. And then we found out later why she was checking the wind, because this boar back 100 yards from where we were, 100 yards, 100 meters from where we were doing the Arctic hare, this boar was bedded right in against the rocks. And he was on the beach as well. And we kind of saw him from a long ways away, but we still couldn't tell for sure whether it was a bear or not until we got over there. And that's what turned out to be, it was unreal what this bear did for us. It turned out to be the best shoot, and it was the big boar. So that was another plus. But he was just laying down in this really crappy spot because there was no way to get eye level with him. We were shooting down on him where he was, but there was some good behavior. He was kind of, covering paws over the face and all that kind of stuff while he was down on the beach. And then we just kept talking. Okay, we need him to go right over the rocks, come up over the top, and like we talked about, right down through this cut, because it was like yellow, orange, red, every color you could imagine of fall foliage in this cut. And he did exactly that. And James actually, because we were talking the whole time, and James is like, you got to be kidding me. Because exactly what we asked him to do. And then he goes across this beautiful spongy field of every color you can imagine and lays down fairly close to us, but we were right next to the van. So James kind of, he was watching the bear very closely because it was in a little bit closer proximity, but we were literally at the van. And so he let us keep filming. And this bear came up, laid down, and just started chomping this bush. I don't even know what it was, but just chewing it like it was his worst enemy. I mean, chewing on it. And then he sat up, looked over, and then just flopped on his back and just laid there and put on this lazy bear show. And that's literally, Cole, when you said it was like we were at a zoo, that whole experience right there for probably 2-3 hours we were there.
Easily. Yeah.
That whole experience.
Yeah. Cause we stayed until we couldn't shoot anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. We had to go. And that whole experience was like, this is just nuts. I mean, this is all happening within 70 yards of us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that whole scene, you're right, Ron, it does look staged. You know what I mean?
It does.
It's
the whole
so
thing
perfect. it looks staged. But yeah,
it was unreal. And I mean, what we got in 4 days, I don't think a person could hope for, in a decade. And we got it in 4 days, and those guys were gracious, but they also kind of trusted us in a sense as a group, to do what they asked, and kind of, we were asking permission to move. We were checking with them to make sure they were okay with what we were doing all the time, and I think that helped them have a little bit of, or give us a little bit of leniency, as a group. We weren't putting anybody in danger or anything like that. And man, lifetime shots for sure.
Yeah.
And for sure, lifetime experiences. There's no doubt about that. I mean, the whole time you're just wishing your whole family could be there and experience it with you. But that's why I got into it, so I could take the stories back to people and give them the visuals of, what we were fortunate enough to have been a part of. And then he just went and took a nap in the rocks, and
we said goodnight.
That's
and
where
drove
we left
away.
it.
And
yeah.
Night we didn't go out after the aurora.
That's right.
I think we finally got some sleep that night.
Yeah, we did.
You guys got some sleep that night. You needed it. I was still good to go. Well, I mean, I was the night shift guy, so I worked 5 in the evening to 3 in the morning. So it was pretty much my normal sleep schedule. So it was good. But yeah, because that's the night we had Drew and everybody over for pizza. We had a few beers. So
yeah, we did have
that was a fun night too.
And those guys were grateful for that too. They commented they don't really get to have that kind of fun with a group, and that was our last night, and it was a great way to celebrate the trip for sure.
Mm-hmm.
If anybody's listening,
we actually went out that next morning too.
Yeah, we went out briefly. Yep.
Yeah, and we found the same bear in the same location. He didn't really give us a ton. He gave us some sleepy bear stuff, and the sun came out a little bit.
Stuff.
Yeah. Sun kind of spotlighted on him a couple times, so we're like again calling some things, and they were happening, and it was just like, oh my gosh, this is just getting ridiculous. Even James that day was like, okay, come on, But yeah. And that's how we ended it, right? That morning was we shot him for a while, and then we all said, okay, yeah, I think we're going to get what we're going to get. It's time to kind of go back and get packed up and head to the airport. But
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Again, thanks for thinking of me and letting me hang out with you guys for that trip. That was phenomenal.
You could come. That was awesome. Go ahead, Mark. What were you going to say?
Saying a truly different tale from Churchill, Manitoba, right? I mean, that's one of the things that excited me most about doing this episode was it's not face value. It's not what people expect to hear of a trip to Churchill, as any of them can be fantastic, I'm sure. But to hear when you went and how productive it was, not just for imagery, but just the experiences for all the different things in that amount of time. Seriously.
Yeah. And even I thought the same thing until we landed in Churchill. I mean, I pictured the tundra buggies and I thought there'd already be snow, or at least a little bit. I wasn't expecting the colors. I wasn't expecting the type of behaviors that we got to see. So even until we got there, I was still thinking of what you imagine Churchill to be: the tundra buggies, the barren tundra with the snow, the frozen bay, so even going there until we actually landed, I was still imagining that.
I mean, yeah, totally. And it's nothing, I mean, doing it in that time is a exciting proposition experience to experience with the snow and that changing a season. But something else would be, I expect there are very few photographers in comparison when you went. Wouldn't be as busy, right?
That's what I was just going to say. So a couple days we were the only groups out. I think there were other groups out in different areas, but we didn't see them at all. And in the winter, like October, November, when there's higher bear densities, but there's way higher people densities, and it's like shooting in Yellowstone, from what I understand. It's wall to wall people, and you're kind of fighting for a spot sometimes, and that just isn't that fun for me. And we had a couple people join us on a few different shoots, but really we were by ourselves. And the one I talked about a little bit before, and it just kind of goes back to that respect the animal, and the animal comes first. There was a couple people out there, and we ended up on that carcass at one time, and they had moved, literally, the bears had moved the carcass, and these people had literally went and were almost standing right on the carcass, trying to get just these extreme close-ups. And if conservation would have been there, obviously they would have been hauled off, but they weren't. But just the danger that you put the animal in, because if something happens, now we got a sow and a cub that have to be taken out because they attacked somebody that was doing something incredibly stupid. So think about your actions, number one, but then think about how your actions are going to impact the animal first and foremost. And they didn't. They were thinking about their shot, and that was that. I mean, we stayed up around, because they kind of pulled it around a corner, and so it really wasn't the same opportunity that we had earlier. But the bears, they wanted their privacy, and they put it in the position where they'd have it. And to walk out there is just, it's a little bit nuts.
Irresponsible.
Irresponsible.
It was, yeah.
Thank you. That's the word I was trying really hard to find.
Right.
And I think you explained it well. It was intrusive, not only to the bear and the cub, but intrusive to the few of us that were there. I think it obviously altered their behavior that they normally would do, and was intrusive on trying to enjoy the experience because, of their irresponsibility. So,
Yep. But I mean, that was a very small blip on a amazing trip.
And it didn't really affect our overall shoot at all.
We
didn't miss anything because of it, honestly.
But it's a good reminder that this is about the experience. We're all passionate about collecting imagery, but it's still, those are just pictures, right? I mean, nothing needs to be compromised for people or animals' welfare for the sake of photos or video. It's not that important. You're there for the experience. You can still soak it in, right? And as you gentlemen all had on this trip, the quantity and quality of experiences, even if they all, there's going to be one or two that just can't come to fruition, but there's so many more that do. Right. That it's never worth the risk of pushing it too far.
Yeah. Yep. Well, and even if every image we took was shot in JPEG, it would have been worth the experience.
I'm sure glad that came back around.
Yeah, that's so good.
Yeah. So now from now on, when you guys host Yellowstone next year, you have to do that. Now let's not RAW this shoot. And that means don't JPEG this shoot. That's what I'm going to use from now on. You're going to use the, what do you assume? Make an ass of wrong. I'm going to say, don't RAW this shoot. Let's not JPEG it.
Guess who's not invited?
Yeah.
I was already invited before we even finished that trip. So there. By Jason.
Yeah, absolutely. It would have to be Jason.
Oh. I'm sorry, Ron.
Too funny.
But Mark, I hope you have an amazing trip up there, because
you will.
It's an incredible place, and
well, this was just such a dipping your toe in the water and a taste of it, and it was so good. I really want to go back and do the winter.
I do too.
So.
And I kind of don't. I kind of want to go for the fireweed, and I want to go for the whales in the river in a helicopter.
Well, I'm going to tell you, Ron. You call me and say we got to book a trip going, and you I can't say no. So I mean,
yep.
Yeah, and maybe we'll see the ptarmigan, and we don't have to see an AI ptarmigan.
There you go. The elusive ptarmigan of Churchill.
Yeah.
But
just funnin'. We know they're there. We actually did see some. We just didn't get photos. But.
Yeah.
This one got.
And we saw the one silver fox too.
Oh yes, we did.
The one silver fox was hunting. Yeah, but we just couldn't get any photos of it or video.
For those of you that stuck with us this long, thank you.
No kidding.
It's been good stories. What a trip. I mean, and again, not just, it's different. That's what I appreciate about it. I mean, I love to hear any story about any wildlife encounter, but the fact that this is a totally different flavor, it's a different season. So I think it's been a fantastic episode, and appreciate all of the insight. I would love to do that seasonality. I mean, in a perfect world, you have the opportunity to do both a snow season and fall color if one could. But live vicariously right now through your experience has been wonderful, and appreciate Cole joining us to add your take on it. And it's great to meet you, even though it's not technically in person. You know, it's
right. Yeah, likewise, for sure. Thanks for inviting me on.
That's a wrap for another episode of Beyond the Wild podcast. We'd like to thank our sponsors, Pictureline.com, your online source for everything photography, and Canon USA. Follow us on Instagram at Beyond the Wild Podcast, and make sure to check out our website at beyondthewildpodcast.com for additional show notes, information, and photographs for all of our episodes. You can watch our podcast on YouTube, where we'll include video and photo content, and subscribe. We welcome your comments, questions, and feedback on all of our social media platforms. We hope that you enjoyed this episode of Beyond the Wild podcast. Until next time, embrace adventure in the great outdoors with a camera in hand.